Right, we're going to delve into it.
Let's do it.
Ari, you lovely lot. Welcome back to NE1's Mental Health Podcast with me, Ray Elliott, and my good pal and co-host, Sam Warner. How are you doing, Sam?
I'm good. I'm really good, Ray. Well, tell the people where we are.
Yeah, I think I should probably do a little bit of an introduction about what we're doing today before I introduce a guest. So, we are here at a fantastic setting, Beamish Hall in Durham, in the northeast of England, where we are shooting the podcast today. So I do apologise if there's any background noise, but we are doing something a little bit different. We have been invited along here by Amy and Chris from Good Vibrations Northeast to this Wellbeing event, Vibe into Wellness. There's all sorts of things going on, workshops, talks, holistic therapies, ice baths, fire walking, you name it, it's happening here today. But we are pitched up in the lobby, and the idea is that as people come in, they can sit down, be part of the podcast, and maybe even put some questions over at the end, and it just be a bit of an immersive thing. But yeah, we're really, really happy to be here, really proud to be part of this, and we're also really buzzing to be joined by our first guest. So we are joined by Mr. Adam Proud of the Above Average podcast. How are you, sir?
I'm very good, mate. Thank you for having me on.
Hey,
I really
Adam.
appreciate it, man.
No, great to meet you. Great to have you on, man. We've been really looking forward to this. I suppose it's probably strange for you to be here on the other side of the mic.
Mate, it's so weird, but it's kind of chill because I'm like, I don't have any stress of asking questions. I don't have to like worry about what's recording. I'm like, this is all on you guys. Don't worry.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah, we didn't know what we were stepping into today, to be fair. We spoke to Amy and she was like, come along, record the podcast. Yeah, when we got here, this is the first time we've seen where we were going to be. We don't actually know how many people's going to be passing through or what have you, but we're really excited for it. Hopefully the sound quality comes out great, and I know for a fact the chat's going to be great. But so I can give a little bit of introduction to you and what you do, but I mean, or I can hand it over to you and you can give a better description.
I mean, to be fair, mate, I've done bits of everything over my time. Currently, obviously, like you said, I still do the Above Average podcast. I've done it for nearly 2 years, be 2 years this November. I've done YouTube for the last 8 years, just ranty vlog style videos, few motivational things with some cool music over the top. I've been a meditation teacher, an Osho dynamic meditation teacher. Not officially, I just kind of took it off Google and YouTube and stuff and thought it was amazing, so decided to teach it in a local village hall. I've done all sorts, mate, to be fair.
Yeah, you do keynote, don't you? I've
done several speeches, yeah. I've done some for organisations like Legal Aid and things like that. So, but mostly telling my story, but I love to incorporate like some message in it, not just here's me, like me. I'm like, it's got to have a message or something to it, you know what I mean? So
yeah. I have seen particularly the entrance to your keynote. I found that pretty interesting.
Was it the Rock You Like a Hurricane one? Right? Yeah. Honestly, that was the scariest one I've done, I think, because it was my very first speech that I ever did was in that hall a few years prior. And I'd always wanted to get into public speaking, but when you're starting out your first one, no one takes you seriously, no one knows who you are. So a mate of mine was like, look, come do 5 minutes open at mine. And I was like, mint, I'm on it. I was like, how many people were talking? Like 20, like 25? He's like, no, about 120. I was like, balls. Like, I'm gonna bollocks this up. But honestly, it was mint. I went up there and stage fright died, and a few years later I did that one that you mentioned, and I was like, I'm gonna come out like swinging, doing air guitar and stuff. I was like, just get people hyped, you know. But
awesome, mate. I love it. Yeah, I was watching it. I was like, that is an entrance. Obviously, Sam and I, we both do public speaking. We've never had an entrance like that. We might have to work on that, mate.
Not quite yet. Yeah. How long did it take you to get to there? What from that first 5 minute talk to?
I'd done a few in between. So the 5 minute talk was a couple of years prior, and then I'd done like a few ones in between. Because once you get it on camera, people know you're official, and they're like, okay, well, we'll book you, and then you get word of mouth and stuff, and so it was a little bit of a long road, but is this all right here, by the way? Is that cool?
Yeah, you're all good,
cool.
All good. This is very noisy. Like I said, like Ray said, we are in it, but this is great noise. This is everybody of all shapes and sizes.
Everyone looks buzzing, man.
Everyone's buzzing. The Good Vibrations is a great title because the vibe is up in it. So for listeners, this is everything you can hear is positive vibes.
Yeah, it is. Yoga mats galore.
There's so many wet robes as well. Yeah. Like everyone's in wet robes. I'm like, okay, cool.
There's every shade of colour hair here as well, and lots of artwork on the body. It's great.
Yeah, I'm hoping that today we can get some time to maybe explore around here. I know we've got quite a jam-packed day.
We're doing 2 shows, aren't we, today?
Yeah, we've got 2 guests in, 2 really good guests. But yeah, I'm hoping we can steal away. I wouldn't mind getting a little ice bath, There's a few things. I'd love to try the Reiki. I'd love a sound bath. It's something that really interests me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure we can get into all that. But right now, it's all about you, Adam. And I want to delve in a little bit because you're above average podcast. I've listened to a few of your podcasts. I think it's great. I think you've got a really good style of delivering, whereby this is something I struggle with. I'm quite scatty, and if I've got something on my brain, I just need to sometimes jump in.
I'm exactly the same. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
No, but I feel like you've got a really good style of, talking, but allowing people to talk about their story. I think you do that really well.
Yeah, it's called biting your tongue 90% of the time. It's called like someone says something, you have something slightly relevant, and you go, I can't just interrupt the story. They're talking about something deep and meaningful, and then my brain's just like, this should be fun to say, But
do you find, Adam? Here's me interjecting.
Yeah.
Do you find that kind of etiquette you create on your podcast, which teaches you a lot about how you are, and you take it back out into the world, and you become a better listener?
Yeah, I think. I mean, I always love to listen, and I was always the guy that people came to for problems, which I think is quite common when people do things like this. They're the one that people have always came to. But no, I think definitely it helps, because a lot of the time now I find myself, I'm a big. I don't have ADHD or anything like that. People think I do. I don't. But I do get quite scatterbrained, and I do think of a lot of things at once, and I like to be constantly stimulated, which I think is a problem a little bit. Yeah. But obviously, when I'm doing these podcasts, I have to sort of dial it back and be a little bit more calm and collected. And
there's no harm in that, is there, for us? It kind of makes us more present. And that, that old adage, 2 ears, 1 mouth. That's something. Something that makes a lot more sense to me these days.
Yeah, well, I've learned that. That's been one of the biggest takeaways since I've started doing the job I do with the public speaking, because essentially when we go somewhere and we tell our lived experience story, it sort of gives people a license to come and talk to you, but they're not really looking for you to fix them or give them a solution or a diagnosis, and I'm not trained to do that either. But that whole thing of just giving somebody that space, your attention, and just giving them an ear where they might have never opened up to anyone in their life and had that deep level of conversation, or just opening up about the troubles they've been living with for a long time, and you just sitting there holding that moment, listening to them, is so powerful, man. Yeah,
and I think that goes true for any relationship that you have, whether it's with a boyfriend, girlfriend, or just a best friend or whatever. I think it massively depends how you respond to a woman's mental health problem versus a man's. Because for a lot of men, like, they want a solution. They want that solution sometimes. Not all the time, like you said. They do want to just be heard. But a lot of the time, they want someone to go like, okay, here's what to do. I found with a lot of women that have came to me with problems or whatever, I'm like, do you need to rant or do you want a solution? And I've got to say that. I've got to.
How do you get that off the bat? Yeah, just
because I'm like, right, you've got a problem. Do you want a solution or do you want to rant? Because my inclination is to go, here's a solution. This is how you fix that problem.
Yeah.
But sometimes people don't want that. They just want to go, I just want to vent. I just want to scream about it. And it's like, tell me which one you want.
Yeah.
Because then I'm going to give you a better. I'm either going to listen to you or I'm going to be able to help you. It's two.
Because I'm going to put this gum shield in here and a head guard, and I'm going to. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, basically, man.
Yeah. But just going back to the podcast, and like you say, you've been doing it a long time. What I found was interesting. I know I'm not a big researcher, but I have looked at some of your videos on YouTube, and I went back and I think, was it like 2016? Was it or 2018? You're sitting and you're just basically having a chat with friends, and you're getting the conversation started. And I think, how does that where did that start? Where did it come from, and how did that grow into what you're doing today?
TGI Fridays for 7 years. That's where that comes from. Mate, if anyone's listening who's worked in the service industry, you've got to draw conversation out of a stone. Like, you've got to be the one that instigates things. You've got to come over happy, charming every time. No matter if you're hungover or you're dying or you've done like a 12-hour shift, you are able to converse with people.
That's interesting,
Yeah, because I think most people don't have that ability to... I mean, I had a TikTok recently go viral because everyone was agreeing. I had a lady called Amy Dolby on, and she runs Blondie Bakery. She was on Gordon Ramsay's Food Stars or something like that.
Right.
And we're talking about that, and we're saying you can tell someone who's served in an industry like retail or hospitality, you can see someone's attitude towards people. Yeah. And I think definitely that's where it comes from, is being able to go over to someone who's maybe not that talkative and draw the conversation out of them and give them that permission to speak. Because when you're happy and you go over, if you go over like, hi, do you want some fries? Do you want some onion rings? Yeah, no worries, and you write it down. They're just going to give you the bare minimum. But if you go, hi mate, you alright? Oh, nice watch, you know, looking cool, you look like Jason Momoa, you know, you give that sort of vibe, people respond a bit better. You know, you don't go too far and be weird, but like, that's what we were trained to do at TGI, is we were trained to go and sit next to them on the booth seats and take their order and stuff and be really friendly. So
where did the, you know, you've obviously had like this idea that the conversation needs to get started around mental health and well-being, because ultimately I know your podcast often doesn't start talking about that. It talks about like extraordinary things that, I say this in inverted brackets, normal people are doing, but it always sort of tends to have a slant around mental health and well-being. It gets back to that. Well,
I like to structure it in a way that like people find out who they are first, because if you go on any sort of social media now, I know you're not on social media, so but you go on social media and you see you go on Reels or whatever, it's some guy who's, you know, in front of a microphone and he's like, if you're not up at 4:30, you got to do this, and and everyone's like, oh, fuck off, mate. You know what I mean? They don't care anymore. So it's nice I wanted to give that side to people where they can say, you know, this is just a person who's done something good, but they're not crazy about it. They've just put in some work and they've had their own battles, and this is what I can learn from that. Which I think is better than like just screaming down a microphone at someone to hustle harder or go to the gym at 4:30. You know, it's nice to have that, like.
Because why are you screaming about it?
Sorry?
Because why would somebody be screaming about it? If you've done the work for you, genuinely, why would you be screaming about it for everybody else? Do you know what I mean?
It's crazy that, I mean, I used to be a really big fan of, is it Elliot Thomas? E.T. or something like that?
Okay.
And he's Eric Thomas, sorry, my bad. And he's like this big speaker in America, and he just screams down the microphone. And it was good when I was like 17, 18 and first got into self-development. It was good because I needed that push. But then it was like, everyone says they need to kick up the arse, but then eventually they get sick of being kicked. You know, like, stop kicking us. They need to be like...
I need an arm around the shoulder.
Yeah, they need to be inspired.
That's interesting, because we're old enough now, probably us three guys, that with a bit of retrospect, we're in different chapters of the story along the way, and we're not listening to the mental music we maybe listened to when we were 16 now, you know. But at the time, the right thing's happening, isn't it? And if you do have the ability with hindsight to go, okay, I see how that led me to this and that led me to that, and although it's not my scene now, it did get me to, you know, and not sort of burning everything down in the past. Do you know what I mean? I think that's important. It's part of how we arrive where we are, isn't it?
Yeah, man. I mean, I do love epic motivation where it's like shouting and grinding. I love that. But I'm also like, I love hearing people where they're just chill about it. And they're like, look, like, you're not going to feel 100% all the time. You know, if you've got 60% in the tank, give 60%. You know, and it's like, that's a calmer, much better way to look at it than just grind it out until you die, you know.
But I think there's a place for every style, isn't it? It's a bit like people's learning styles, isn't it? You know, and I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of that militant, you know, you must be, I can take it back to diet and whatnot, like someone, for example, like Eddie Abu, following him.
I can't stand him, man. I'm not gonna lie.
And you know what?
You heard that here first.
It started off funny, and I've been following like a keto diet for a long time. It really works for me. So a lot of his ethos is around that. But it's like, it starts off like basically like, this is shit. What you doing, stupid? Like, wake up. Oh, you know that. Do you know what really grinds me gears? Like, wake the F up. You know, like, wake up, people. I'm just like, oh, have a day off. But if somebody's like informing you about something, letting you choose, make your own choices, and you know, I'm all for that. But this whole militant thing where people are just like, you are stupid if you're not doing this my way. It's my way or the highway. I'm just like, nah, it doesn't work for me. And I'm just like, unfollow. You know, it doesn't take as long to get really bored.
It's like when he's standing in Asda and stuff and he's like, this chicken breast is shit. I'm like, well, I might as well just eat dust then, for fuck's sake. Like, but it's like those sorts of people, they do have their place, and sometimes it is what people need to hear.
I've no doubt he's motivated millions of people.
100%. And he's in good shape, you know?
No doubt about that,
But I think like, when it comes to diet, just as an example, like, there's so much out there, people just forget the basics. And it's like, calories don't mean shit. Do this instead, and it's like, no, calories is the basis of losing weight. Calories in versus calories out. But everyone's looking for fad diets and stuff like that. But I'm like, if a diet works for you, it works for you. All diets work, but what can you stick to in that terms? Like, what's sustainable for you? Like, if you're going to be sorry, go on.
So, no, Karen, sorry. I'll hold my thought because you've hit something really.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, what diet is sustainable for you? Like, for example, I train at the gym 4 days a week, right? I don't look huge. I'm not massive. I don't have a six-pack. In fact, I've got, a little bit of a veranda over the toy shop, so to speak. But like, it's sustainable for me, and it means I can go out. I don't have to think too much of it. I get my protein in, which is the main thing. I go out and I think, what meal's got the most protein in? I don't just order pasta and pizza. And I enjoy it, But if I was to go down the bodybuilding route and I'm just like watching every carb, every calorie, that's not sustainable for me. I can't enjoy my life. And I don't want to be a bodybuilder, so why do I need to be,
Yeah.
Like, some people just need to make a few alternatives with diet, full fat Coke down to Pepsi Max or something, or,
Well, start small, isn't it? That's the thing. It's
just
bite-sized, isn't it?
Basics.
Pardon the pun. But, but if you start making small changes and then you feel that benefit and you think, oh wow, I've only swapped out something, but I can feel that, and then you're more inclined to start making the bigger lifestyle changes, and then that'll stick with you, won't it?
100%.
That's the point I was going to make. Is, do you not feel like in the social media world and in the kind of human optimization, that whole thing, right? It's almost like the pattern's played out. And now we're going back and we're pulling apart keto now because now it's carnivore. So there's that much going on.
Yeah.
That, like, whether or not you're trying to get yourself on a good path and you're going down the paleo route, I'm on keto, and you're trying for the right intentions, there's that much beaming in all the time now.
Yeah.
Oh, now not paleo now. No, the latest papers say that no, you should be. And that can spin people out. And in the end, you know what I've learned along the way is, and you touched on it there, going to the gym, having a pizza now and again. The things we need to be doing, they don't need to be in a 4K video by some fucking lunatic in a supermarket or someone doing yoga on a mountaintop in Colorado, right? If you're managing to drink water more than pop, and eat vegetables more than shite, and getting out in the fresh air and doing a bit of exercise now and again, right? And managing to maintain your self-respect, therefore having decent social relationships around you.
Yeah.
You've hit the jackpot.
Mate,
you don't need to buy any of that, by the way.
Yeah.
No one needs to get you on a monthly subscription for it. Nobody needs to fucking have you part of like an in crowd or hashtag fucking.
Well, it's like do you remember that Chris Hemsworth thing that came out, like, I think it was last year, and it's like him looking like Thor and he's doing kettlebell workout,
something like that.
And it was like, he's not even involved in
Invincible,
this. Doing this isn't even going to make you look like Chris Hemsworth. It was just fake marketing, but that's all it is now. It's just fake footage and stuff. But if you want to get your diet and your fitness on track, do it more days of the week than not, and stop worrying about it. Just do the basics. Like,
and don't worry about having to tell everybody about it.
Oh God, no. Mate, when I started the gym, I was embarrassed to go to the gym, right? Because none of my friends went to the gym. I was like 18, and this is where my self-development thing really started with the gym. And a guy called Paul Joblin, who was my PT at the time, a tough, Geordie bloke. I came in, I was like built like a rake, and like I had long, floppy hair, a little bit of a receding hairline on it. I looked shit.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with having a long floppy hair.
I looked weird, bro. I had like a little goatee as well. I'll show you. It's on my driving license as well. I'll show you. It's horrible. But he really got me into motivation, and he gave me that tough man attitude a little bit. Right. I'm a massive nerd. I'm not a tough guy. I don't know how to fight or kill, or I'm not an MMA fighter or anything like that. I'd be blown over by a gust of wind. But he instilled in me like, what do you actually want to do? What's the alternative if you don't come to these sessions with me?
Yeah.
You're still going to be skinny. You're still going to feel unconfident. So I was like, if I don't turn up, that's the alternative.
Right.
And I had to remember, he instilled in me, what's the alternative?
And it's really simple, isn't it? You make a choice.
Yeah.
And you do the work.
Yeah.
And then you get the reward. What you get is what you give. I love that.
Yeah.
How old were you at that stage, Adam?
Well, to be fair, do you mind if I tell the story? Or?
No, absolutely. Because I was wanting to move on to this, because you now, so you're involved with running the gym, aren't you? So that is going to be part of the chat. I was hoping we could move towards. So I think it's
absolutely,
moved quite
mate. I'll push through, mate. So basically, when I was about 17, I was like sort of finishing my last year of college. I had a girlfriend. I had a future of I'm going to go do IT and fix computers for a living and make loads of money.
Yeah.
I got broken up with and I hated the degree. Right. I was like, great.
The fundamentals are gone.
Yeah, I was like, great. The safety barrier's gone. So what do? So I was moping around in my room, playing video games, bashing Halo or whatever was out at the time, and my mum says, look, I'm sick of you moping around the house. I've got a PT. I want you to go see him. So I got dragged down to this freezing cold warehouse gym.
So it was your mum that was a catalyst?
More power to your mum.
Funny enough, now I'm telling her to go back to the gym, which is funny. But so she dragged me down. I met Paul, and he trained me for quite a few years. And then I ventured out on my own and just started training myself. But it's funny that people don't see that the basics is eating better and training. They say it's such a chore, but it's like the alternative is you feel like shit.
Yeah.
Like we said before, if you don't get the basics down, you're going to feel like shit. Like, especially for dudes, man. Dudes need to train. Because, and that sounds like such a TikTok clip. Like, dudes need to train. But it's true, right? Because our brains, this is what people forget, right? I love evolutionary psychology and stuff like that, right? Our brains have not evolved for like 300,000 years. We've had 20 years of Facebook culture and 300,000 years of caveman brain. Our brains aren't wired to see everything that we see on a daily basis, to take all that information in and to sit in a chair for fucking 6 hours a day. We are designed to move, to hunt, to do things. Now, I'm not saying you have to go and hunt, but like things that increase your dopamine.
Just being out in nature.
Being attached to our natural
Exactly,
way.
natural things, man.
And natural now isn't in a cave and killing a deer, but it's certainly not being sat on a screen for 12 hours a day and having your brain just mushed by impossible thoughts.
Yeah, well, do you guys know Dunbar's number? Have you heard of Dunbar's number?
Robert
So
Dunbar,
it's the belief that we're supposed to be in tribes of 150 people, right? It's like after...
We've talked about this very thing.
After like your brain starts to forget names, faces,
you can't
like
keep
voices.
You can't keep a meaningful recollection of... And that's why tribes and hunter-gatherer communities would break off at that number, because 100%. It's just impossible to create meaningful connection at that point.
But it's like in those tribes, we would see, you know, the town blacksmith or the chef, right? And we knew that, and that was possible for us to reach those jobs, and we knew what was possible. Now the chef in our head, if we want to be a chef, we have to be Gordon Ramsay, and there's such a massive gap between, you know, where we are starting out, you know, a chef at Wetherspoons or whatever, to Gordon Ramsay level, that it puts a lot of pressure on us now to reach those heights.
Well, it's disconnecting with reality, isn't it?
It's not real. You're never going to meet, I mean, I'm never going to meet Gordon Ramsay, really, unless I go and cook, but I don't cook anything other than chicken and rice, you know? So it's like, I'm not going to reach that stage, but it's like, if I want to be a speaker or a podcaster, I don't have to be Stephen Bartlett or Joe Rogan.
Oh, absolutely,
but that's always kind of there in the back of my head, like, you're not at Joe Rogan's level, you'll never be there. It's like, but I don't need to be, and it's a constant pressure battle between, you know, this reality that I see on my phone. If I ditched my phone and just made a podcast, I'd be good. I wouldn't have anything to compare it to.
That's what I've done.
Yeah, that's why you did. Yeah, exactly. You're probably much happier for it as well, you know?
Comparison is a thief of joy. Is that the...
Comparisonitis, man. But it's like, you can either use it as inspiration and say, well, how do they do it? What can I take from the way they talk?
Certain styles and...
Sure.
And it's like, that helps more than comparing and going, well, what's the fucking point?
Do you think we've arrived at a time where you've got to treat your phone... And I've said this before, like in the past, I've said it in regards to kids. I think you've got to treat phones with the kids like you would treat alcohol or car keys or cigarettes. You know, like but for us adults, we have
Sam wants mobile phones to come with like a health warning, like cigarettes do. You know, like
picture of a fucking
big cross on them. Yeah.
But for us adults, you know, like we have to start creating healthy habits with our phones, and that's easy to say, you know, I'll leave my phone downstairs when I go to bed or whatever, but I caught myself this weekend knowing I'm going away for 2 weeks now, touring, talking, and I'm going to leave my kids, and I'm only there for the like 48 hours, these last 48 hours, and a couple of times Daddy, look at my drawing, and I'm just looking at YouTube's the only thing I've got now, right? And I'm just looking at YouTube because catching up on whatever shite football scores initially, but before you know it, I'm watching fucking women doing press ups in Miami and fucking, you know, and then I catch myself, and I know how hideous that would look. A 7-year-old little girl, daddy with a drawing, and me just kind of drifted off. And although it only took me a split second, I can, if I'm honest with myself, still have to find put that fucking down. Wait till I'm on the train for 5 hours tomorrow. You know, like I think those patterns will start to come in more, because I think we really have to do that.
I think you said something before, I can't remember the exact quote. We were talking about social media because we're in a bit of a quandary here, because we're trying, you know, we started this podcast to try and help people, right? And we don't want any gain from it at all. But the problem is, to help people, you have got to have a certain platform, and you have got to put things out there to reach those people. And like I struggle with this all the time, because I'm trying to put things on, but something's get bored, or it's a bit too much, and but I know I need to be doing more than I am doing.
You've got to give yourself credit, Ray, because you do it in an organic way. There's no fucking paid promotions. There's no like umping on the back of someone else. It's just like, we made the content. You know, we don't do video, and we're filming today. And that was a part of what we're doing. I mean, you know how much is involved with editing, making a trailer, making clips. Like this turns into another 2 days. Whereas I'm going to press stop on here, we'll bump it up with a title, and it'll be gone, and it goes in, and Ray puts it out there, and like he says, he's not going mad. And if you're in that quandary, I should promote it more, but actually, it will find who it's supposed to find.
Yeah.
Especially given what we're talking about, because it's not an entertainment podcast so much as like, you know,
gotcha moments like Fresh and Fit or something like that.
Yeah, you know, it's actually, this will be found by some kid, some lad, some lady who's just stumbled across it, and that's where I'm trying to get to, and I think you're doing a good job of that, Raider. You should not knock yourself about that.
Yeah, but it is, you know, like I think you said something like making social media serve you instead of you serving social media.
It's a tool, and it depends how you use it. I mean, I mean, it was the same thing when. I don't know. I'm 28. I wasn't around when TVs came out, but I'm assuming it was the same when TVs came out. Everyone was glued to it. Families would sit and watch and shut up and stare at it, you know. And now we just do it separately on our phones. But it's up to you how you want to use it, and if it's actually ruining your life, because this is a big thing. I'm like, is it stopping me from doing more work? It's actually not, because in between, you know, sound files syncing up or whatever on my editing software, I'll have a bit scroll, I'll message someone back, and then when it's time to work, it's time to work, and I just put it under the desk so I forget about it. It's like, if it's visible, you'll remember to use it, but if you put it in your pocket or you put it in a bag, it's just,
this is spot on. You're spot on. What I worry about is if you look at history, if you look at cigarettes, for example, right? For the longest time, we've smoked cigarettes, we've smoked the plants of tobacco. Obviously, it became, I don't know, what was it, in the 20s when we started to factory form cigarettes, and then in come the chemicals, or whatever it is. But we've smoked cigarettes socially for a long time. It took us a long time to realise, given that we found new ways of collecting data and analysing the impact. Then we've gone, whoa, fucking hell, that was mental. Doctors used to prescribe cigarettes at one time, right? I worry that that's what's happening with us with digital media, is like, the analogy you used is a great one for the television. When the television came, it's like the television used to shut off. And there was one channel, then there was two channels, and it used to shut off, and it went on when you got...
Now there's 200 channels.
I think we're going to get a few generations in, and we're going to, then we'll see the data. We're starting to see it now, aren't we?
Well, I think what we're talking about is, because it's an addictive thing, isn't it? And I think the thing with anything that's addictive is that, you know, it can start off just casual use, and then before you know it, you are addicted, you know. And I think that's happened to all of us at some point on our phones, where you know, casual use in the advancement in the phones is meant we're more on it more, and then we're absolutely addicted, but we don't know it.
And what's insidious is because it's not a toxic substance, like I think we all agree, alcohol's got a much harder rap, let's say, than marijuana, right? But in terms of, sorry, let me rephrase that.
The other way around.
Marijuana's got a much harder rap in our social understanding, although it's been around for thousands of years longer than alcohol even, because it grows out of the earth. Alcohol's got a barcode on it. It's innocuous, allegedly, although it actually kills more people than all the combined drugs. But it's got a barcode on, and you can buy it on any corner anywhere. And so with the phones, it's like that. It's almost like we don't see it as like, how could it be negative? We've all got them, and they're there, and they're available, and you buy them from the shop, and you know, and I think that's the thing that's going to take a long time for us to look back on and go, oh shit, that created.
I mean, look at these vape things now. Like, I don't know. Do you guys vape? No,
no. Well, yes, but concern. Marijuana, not.
But it's just like we vaping introduced everyone's chin on these little bubble gum flavored things.
Do you know some of the most amazing data? People who didn't smoke.
Mate, my friend, I'm gonna call him out on this. I'm not gonna name him, but he used to come around my house when vapes were first a thing, and he never smoked in his life. And we used to play Xbox together, and he just like, I'm just gonna charge my vape with your Xbox. I'm like, get that blueberry scented shit out of my room. He's like, big clouds of, you know, beetroot flavour or whatever. I'm like, get out, stop doing it. You don't smoke. He's like, I know, but it's an addiction, you know.
My mate calls it his douche dummy.
His douche dummy. That's an accurate term.
And I'm like, oh god, it is. It's a douche dummy. You know, like,
I
don't think anybody looks at anyone vaping and goes,
that's
you know,
cool,
like back in the days when it was in the 50s, like, got James Dean just hanging out
with
his
cool,
like, oh, you're so cool.
I tried one of my mates once, and he blew a lung. It was like, he turned it up to, you could like dial it, and it had like a digital number on for how powerful it was. It was like 400 and something, and I was like, alright, cool. And honestly, I felt like my chest was going to blow up. It was horrible.
But it, like you say, if you get something that addictive and make it taste nice, like, what is the issue with smoking, right? A lot of people will be like, oh, the smell, the taste, it doesn't get off your clothes. Then you go, well, hold on a minute. let's just eliminate all that and here it
Here's a
tastes like
banana
blue.
milkshake flavour.
What's your favourite milkshake? Well, here you go. And, I mean, how much more appealing can it get to people? And then they wonder why people are hooked. And it's not a coincidence. God, they know exactly what they're doing when they're making these things.
And it's an unregulated industry, by the way. So it's unregulated. So, manufacturers, companies trying to make a buck, they're not taking the routes that maybe they would if they had to be safer than what they probably.
It'll be interesting to see the dangers that come out in a few years. Like, I mean, they're coming out. People's lungs and stuff. Yeah, but anything you inhale is just daft. But I always like seeing guys. I'm like, that guy looks cool. He's got sunglasses, cool hair, a t-shirt, jeans. Pulls out a vape. I'm like, oh, douchebag. Just drop him in it.
Well, I can't remember what comedian it was, but I think it was Mickey Flanagan, and he's on about going up to the shop and there's like loads of these teenage hoodies and he walks up and he's like really intimidated, and then he just gets this massive plume of Tutti Frutti and he's like, you are tough.
It's not cool.
You just ruined it for yourself. And he's like,
let's go back to whiskey and cigars, guys. Let's go back to that. That's at least cool.
Yeah, I think you can probably get on board with that. We've done a fair share of whiskey sampling, but we've sort of just went off on all sorts of tangents. But I want to take it back a little bit.
Yeah, go for it, man.
So, you live in Shields now, yeah?
No, I live in Gateshead. I drive to Shields. I drive an hour every morning to get to work, to the gym.
Right, okay.
So it's a bit of a nightmare, brother.
So you're Geordie lad, born and bred. Are you brought up? What area were you brought up in?
I'm sort of around the Metro Centre area, so it's not like the best area, but it's also not like the worst area. You can go out at night and not get killed, but it's like, I grew up very much like a nerdy kid. I was never a football guy. I was never cool in school or anything like that. Like, everything I want to talk about when I was a kid was boring. To other people. I want to talk about TVs and movies. Now it's cool to do that. Now it's cool to play games and watch Marvel movies. It wasn't cool back when I was a kid. So I was bored.
You were ahead of your time, Adam,
yeah, I was ahead of my time, man. And but yeah, everything I want to talk about when I was a kid was boring. People didn't like me. I was a bit weird.
How do you think that affected your personality and your self-esteem? And again, without digressing too far, obviously you mentioned your mum earlier put you on the path. So was home life kind of comfortable? Was it secure? Was it safe? Was it?
Well, my mum's life. You mean
your home life as a child?
Yeah, honestly, great parents.
Yeah,
they separated when I was 18, and that was obviously hard. But I was a little bit more grown up then. But no, they're still sound to this day. They have we see each other at Christmas and stuff. There's no hostility,
like animosity.
Yeah, there's no nasty bitchiness or your dad's a dick or your mum's this or whatever. It's all good. So I had a nice childhood, a nice family and stuff like that. Nothing hard. But my problem was nothing I ever did felt good enough just to people around me. There was always more I could have done, and that's just from people wanting the best for me. Like, have you studied enough? Have you researched enough? I remember I was on holiday during my GCSEs in Ireland, and all my family are out going to these nice sites in Ireland, and I'm in the Airbnb or whatever studying, because that was the attitude that I had to have. They were like, if you don't study hard, you're going to fail at life. And mate, I've never used a GCSE to this day.
Were your parents academic?
Sorry?
Were your parents academic? Were they?
Yeah, they were together then, yeah.
No, were they academic? Were they very...
No, about average, to be fair. I mean, they're smart, lovely people, but I would never say any of them are Einstein.
But they really valued that for you. They saw that as something for you.
They wanted the best for me. I mean, my mum had a bit of a rougher childhood, but she made the best out of it. Yeah. My dad was one of 5, so he's kind of like, he was like the youngest of 5, so he kind of just
That's
had like...
come with its own challenges, isn't it?
So it was just like that. But I'm one of 2. I'm the oldest brother. I have a younger brother who's 8 years younger than me. So it was always, I loved trying to be that role model and stuff, but I mean, I don't fully know where it comes from, and without sort of giving my family history and stuff away, he wants to be a DJ and he wants to produce music and do something creatively. I obviously have my podcast, my videos and public speaking and stuff, so both of us want to be in the limelight. So I mean, you can take away from that what you will. Maybe it's attention starved.
That was going to be my next question. So although your parents wanted that solid academic future for you, and it sounds like up until 18, which is basically your youth, together and solid, was it loving, and could you talk to them about anything? If you were saying you were a loner at school and kind of outcast a little bit, but you were able to sort of express yourself with your folks and they'd listen, and
I mean,
lovely.
My parents would listen, I mean, they just wanted the best for me, but that comes with its own pressures, I don't think I know a lot of people blame their parents for stuff, but unless they were really horrible, like physically abusive, or shoved you in a cupboard or something horrendous, right? You got to forgive them, because they did the best they could with what they had at the time. you know. And I don't think anyone gets out of childhood without some sort of trauma. Everyone's like, oh, my parents messed me up. I'm like, did they love you? Yeah, they just put pressure on me. It's like, okay, well, that's not,
Yeah.
you know, you got to do what they probably had that from their parents. They got some trauma passed down, you know. No one escapes childhood unscathed.
It goes back to that poem, is it? This be the verse, where it's essentially, I'll not reel it off, but it's they mess you up, your parents. They don't mean to, but they do.
Yeah.
And then it goes on to describe how they've been, you know, they've had the challenges with their parents.
Yeah.
And it really gets you thinking, because they have, like, in what I find with older generations, they never really talk about what their childhood was like. A lot of the time they try and do the best for like we all do.
Yeah.
You know, we try to do the best for the next generation, but we're all carrying some sort of baggage, aren't we? You know, whether you like it or not. But that thing that you said about forgiveness, particularly with your parents, I think it's a really powerful thing. And I think a lot of people listening to this who might have had the difficulties in childhood, it is a powerful thing, because what you get to an age where you might be carrying some baggage or some resentment or some hate for things that have happened in the past, but ultimately what you realise is it's you that's carrying that into the future. And what's done is done. And as horrible as it is, but the most powerful thing you can do sometimes is forgive someone. I had this with my own mum. You know, she was an alcoholic, my mum, and she had her own mental health battles. And growing up was difficult. It was really difficult. But I didn't understand, and you don't as a child. You don't get it. And I sadly lost my mum 9 years ago now. And it wasn't until, you know, even now as a parent, I'm starting to get into certain situations, and I'm like, oh, you know, she would have really struggled here, and I wholeheartedly forgive her. But for a lot of the time, I carried a lot of like resentment and hatred because of things I'd experienced or hadn't experienced. You know, and you learn that your parents are just human beings. Like,
100%.
We're all just human beings, and I think we hold those type of people up on a pedestal, don't we? Like some sort of superheroes, because it's in you from a child, innit? You look up to these people that are there with you every day, teaching you the world, and you think, but ultimately they're just people. They're flawed people. You know.
Well, I did a grounding camp, it was called, with a guy called Elliot Hulls from YouTube. I don't know whether you know Elliot Hulls, but he's amazing. I followed him for years, and he did a sort of meditation man's retreat in Florida. So I was like $3,000 or something, and I was like, I got some savings, some tips. So I went out there, and I think it was like just before COVID, like September 2019. And he would put us all in, like, I mean, I remember the first day was like, we were told that we had to get up at 6 a.m, but don't talk. When you get to the house, don't talk. So we all walked in silence to this big house. I mean, some people were in little like sort of lodges, but I was in one of the bigger houses. Don't talk to any of the dudes. Silent. So there's like 12 of us in this like wooden lodge house, just walking around, brushing teeth in silence, going to bed in silence.
It's like living in a monastery, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was like, and he was like, the next day come in, and then everything comes out in the morning. We did like a screaming meditation. It was amazing.
Oh, wicked. What was that like?
Sorry?
Screaming meditation. What was that like?
It was an hour-long meditation. This is what I ended up teaching. I took it back from him and was like, I'm going to teach it to people.
So that was your introduction to it?
It was, yeah. But it was like the first... it was like 4 stages. So there's a guy called Osho, who was like a big guru guy.
Yeah.
And he had several different ones. I can't remember the exact name of this one. There was Kundalini, and then there was this one. And this one was 4 stages over the course of an hour. And first stage was rapid breathing through the nose. So I'm not going to do it because I'll snot all over the microphone. But it was like rapid, you know, and you got your body pumped, and you were sweating, and everything was coming out. And then the music would change. Elliot would hit a gong, and then you would just scream. I mean, there's like 100 guys in a room going,
getting it out.
You know, and it was just like so mental. People were crying, hitting the mats on the floor, banging everything. And then the third stage is you just stop. Wherever you were when the music changes, just stop. Music plays, you just breathe. You're absolutely knackered, sweat's pissing out of you. And then the last phase is you dance, and you do like an expressive dance. So
I like the sound of this.
And that's why I ended up teaching, because I was like, this is some powerful... I mean, I saw the trailers, that's what made me want to go.
Yeah.
But I was like, when I actually did, I was like, fuck, this is mental.
Yeah, huge emotional release.
Yeah.
Because it's weird, because when people think of meditation, and, you know, I like a bit of meditation myself, even the guided meditation, you're like trying to reach a state of Zen, which I would imagine it's in some part you do in that. But what you're explaining there is pretty much probably what everybody's perception, if they're not in a meditation, or if they are, of meditation is you're going against that, really, because you're creating a really noisy environment, you're invoking massive emotions. But how does that work then? Is it still classed as meditation?
Yeah. Well, meditation is whatever you want it to be. I think, like you said, people have that misconception that it's just sitting on a cloud and trying to
cross-legged in the corner with your hands.
Yeah, meditation's boring. That's why people don't do it. 90% of people don't do it. What you want to do is find out what kind of meditation can work for you. So for me, I'm on the go non-stop a lot of the time. I'm looking at screens all the time. I'm absolutely stimulated. But then when I go to sleep, that's what I find, it all comes back. I'm thinking of all the stuff that I forgot that day or didn't do or I've got to do the next day.
You got a busy
because
mind.
I haven't let myself catch up. But if I take 20 minutes to just sit and just breathe and let everything process, let your brain catch up, I feel much better. And that's meditation for me. It's not cancelling the thoughts, it's letting my thoughts catch up. And that works well for me.
Isn't that ironic, given the conversation we just sort of tangentially went on about what's happening with the amount of data
stimulation
we've got now? So even before we get to the word meditation, which is an older concept than what we understand language even, just that's what we're not getting. Before you even get to meditation, just being a human in a less busy world where you have time to think. Kids got bored. Use your imagination, think of something to do. That was or is a meditation.
Mindfulness,
just being able to be with your thoughts, like what has happened today, because you're not just this is going in, that's going in, this is going in, that's on. My wife, even now, even with podcasts, I went for a stage on my journey of kind of like peeling back the layers or whatever, but I was so deep into podcasts, I'd be going into the shower with a podcast on, like you mentioned Rogan earlier. I used to listen to him a lot I've just come across him in the early days. She'd be like, you're going in the shower, you've had that on in the car, you've been going in the shower. She's like, well, don't you want some just quiet? And
so you've had a few showers with Joe Rogan?
I've had many showers, me and Joey Boy, and many of his guests. Yeah, all big burly men as well.
Shower with, man.
No, but she made me think. I batted it off a load of times. I'm becoming a better man here. You don't understand. I'm not watching bullshit here. I'm learning about fucking dolphin language and But actually, it did kick in after a while. It's like, actually, she's right. And I'll go for a bath or something now where I would have had I'd had a glass of wine, a vape of marijuana, not fucking blueberry juice, right? And I'd sit in the bath and I'd have me fucking Epsom salts and I'd have a podcast on, or I'd be listening to some fucking audio book about progression or evolution or whatever. And now I can just sit in there but like we said at the top of the conversation, we're in different chapters.
Yeah.
I needed to listen to those conversations and understand the things I come to understand to get back. This is where I always arrive back at.
Yeah.
It's already here.
Well, do you know what's the funny thing? Mindfulness, right? It's mad now, isn't it? Big buzzword and being present, being in the here and now. And meditation, guided meditation is like listening to the sounds around you. Tell you what, I watched it. I think it was like a meme reel about this comedian. He was on about mindfulness. He's like, I was brought up in the 80s talking about mindfulness. He's like, we don't even know how to be bored anymore. And I was like, oh my god. He's like, when you just had to sit in your room and record something, like record the charts on your thing, and that's
trying to stop before the adverts come in.
We don't know how to be bored anymore, do we? Because we don't have to be. You see it all the time, right? Somebody goes in an uncomfortable situation where they're a little bit nervous. What happens?
Phone comes out.
Yeah.
You're just looking at
doctor's waiting room.
You don't get that minute. It just download it, just download and decompress. We've lost the ability to be bored.
Have you seen this new trend of raw dogging flights and stuff? Have you seen this?
Raw dogging, yeah.
So it's like where they just like train journeys or whatever, and there's no music. They don't go to talk. They just stare into space. There's no music, no headphones.
This is the thing about social media, right? So even that becomes the latest hashtag. Are you doing fucking raw dogging on your journey of fucking,
raw
optimization?
Do
you know what I mean? I've raw dogged, but not on a train.
You're missing out, mate. You're missing out.
That's just dog in, isn't it?
What I was going to say before with the Elliot Hulse camp is once after a couple of days in, he made us write letters to our parents, and he said, because this is where I got the generational trauma thing from. He was like, I want you to write letters to your parents, and I want you in this letter tell them how you feel. You don't have to give it to them, just write how you feel.
Wow.
And then we had like a bonfire later that day and shook them all on the bonfire and stuff, like a ritual. But it was like, I was amazed at what came out when I put pen to paper. I was like, I thought I would have...
I've done this experience.
I thought I would have a lot more hostility towards one parent than the other. Turns out I didn't. I was like shocked at how little I wrote for one, and obviously I won't say which one.
But that's another exercise of actually going and delving into your database, actual experience, and not just taking it from everywhere else. That's a really interesting concept, because I think that's where all the greatest songs come from. That's what people are doing. They're putting that pen to paper, and that subconscious experience is coming out, and that's what makes it magic for us to listen, because we can all relate to those stories of whether it's love or loss or whatever it is. It's a universal language, isn't it?
And I would imagine you get this during those meditation sessions, where people might go in, they don't actually think they've got that much stuff they're carrying around, but when you start that emotional release and they're all that emotion comes out, and you think, whoa, what have I been carrying here?
It's scary, man.
I find it every month. We have a thing called supervision through the job we do, where it's like a therapy session essentially. And I went into the one last week, and I was driving back, like frantically getting back for it, and I'm thinking, now it's really happened, really. Next thing, I'm like just talked out for an hour, like emotional, and we're like, where did all that come from? And you don't even know what you're carrying most of the time. You don't know what's. Mate, I mean, I did a women's one. Now the women they didn't like the screaming one as much, so I did it less for them.
Was this a raw dog? No.
No, I didn't raw dog the women. No, this is meditation. I don't go raw dogging my clients, but yeah. So what have the women in? There was like, I remember it was one of my friends. I invited most of my friends, and then they'd bring a friend or whatever. And there was this girl came in. She was like dead quiet and shy. She's like, I've never done anything like this before. And I was like, don't worry. She was like, I just feel really tense and stressed. Like, don't worry, take a mat, I'll guide you through it, and I'll be there. If you need to stop. It's not something you have to do, I'd encourage you to push forward, whatever. And honestly, the noises she screamed, I was like, shit, she really needed this. I didn't go near that mat. She was having an epiphany. I was like, damn.
I'd be scared to let my wife do that session, because I just know my name would be getting screamed out with a load of some swear words you probably never heard.
We need it though,
I'd be
man.
hearing it from like miles away.
It's so cathartic though to just scream. I mean, anyone listening, if you can, a safe environment, go in your car or something like that, right? Grab the wheel and just go, just let it all out. It feels mint. You feel like a weight's lifted. You feel your shoulders less tense. It's great, man. But when you never get to do that, you never get to express that level of energy, really. So
it's like every office space should probably have one of those sound booths where you can just go in and be like,
well,
just let it all out.
My mate at work that I work with, it's me and him in the office, me and Luke, and he's like, mate, can you go 2 minutes without calling your laptop a swear word? What's the bad swear words? Can I say the C word on this?
I'm
just like, I'm normally at the laptop and something's going wrong there. I'm like, you fucking cunt! And I'm like screaming at him. And he's like, can you go 2 minutes without screaming at your laptop? I'm like, no, it's cathartic.
I'll tell you what is interesting. When you mentioned that therapy you did with the screaming, big Beatles fan growing up, I was, right? Still am, obviously. And John Lennon and Yoko, they went off after the Beatles split. Obviously, there's a famous story, Yoko broke it all up and all that. If anyone's seen Get Back documentary, you know that's not the case. But he went off and did screaming therapy. And as we just kind of spoke about it there, putting pen to paper, when he got back out, if anyone's aware of John Lennon's solo stuff, he wrote a tune called Mother. And his story is his mum left him as a child. He had to go and live with his auntie as a small child. And everyone's heard about the debate between Paul McCartney's the thumbs up, and Lennon's the edgy cool one. Well, a lot of that's attributed to his childhood. He grew up with his strict auntie, and his mum was actually killed by a police officer off duty in a car crash.
Wow.
Anyway, he goes off on a screaming therapy session after the Beatles breakdown, and comes back and writes the song Mother. And if anybody's heard that song, at the end, he's screaming. And it's in the song, so it's quite ironic, isn't it? Because we've just kind of covered that there by getting pen to paper, getting emotions out. It's amazing.
That song has quite a deep meaning to me. It evokes some really heavy emotion. Well, it is a powerful song, but I didn't actually know the backstory. I didn't know that.
Mother, you had me, but I never had you.
Never had you. Yeah,
man. I'm gonna have to go listen to the Beatles on the way back. But I think one thing that really, I don't know whether you want to touch on like emotional men. I don't know whether you want to touch on that, but
absolutely,
one thing that I love to talk about is emotional men, because a lot of the narrative is
you're speaking to two of them, by the way.
Well, men need to be more emotional, and I'm like, no, they don't. They need to know how to handle their emotions, because being emotional is dangerous. If I want to act on emotions, that's how you end up with these school shooters in America. This is how you end up with rapists. This is how you end up with physical abuse, because they don't handle their emotions. Telling men to be more emotional is dangerous. Telling men to be more emotional, intelligent, be aware of their emotions, how to handle it healthily, is a better option. There's more to that sentence than just men to be more emotional.
And we've just had this conversation driving here, because last week I was doing a talk and this guy come up and he was quite upset, and he was telling us about the struggles he was experiencing. And like I've got the ability when we're doing these talks to reach out and get them in touch with a therapist then, which is great stuff. So I said to him, look, do you want to reach out on your own? And he goes, I don't know. And I said, well, why don't you know? He said, because that's not what blokes like me do. And I said, like what blokes like you? Like hard men, he said. And it got us talking about what is a man. What is a man? What is a hard man? You know, and we have this conversation, because I think if you break that down, you break down a lot of barriers with men who don't want to reach out. You know, I can't do it because I'm a man, or I want to be seen as a hard man. What is a hard man? What is a man? So, you know, a hard man, let's talk about that. Like you say, a hard man is somebody that does something that's quite difficult, like not every bloke can do. Now, tapping into your emotions, getting the right help, and sitting with them and tackling deep, distressing emotions, that's a hard man. That's a powerful thing to do.
It's a hard thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a hard thing to do. So then, what's a man? What is a man? You know, and I suppose it's a question for you as well.
I think the archetype is obviously the fucking bald-headed, tattooed,
I don't have any tattoos, by the way, for anyone watching on this side. I'm bald, but I don't have tattoos.
Who knocks people about and who's got a reputation and all that, and he don't cry and all the rest of it. But, you know, we'll find often when you dig deep into that's a man who's not dealt with the child or not dealt with the thing. The difficult thing to do is face yourself, isn't it?
Here's the thing, right? Alpha male, right, is the term that gets passed around, right? If you actually understand what alpha male is, you'll know that you are not always an alpha male. So, for example, right, I'm doing my podcast, right? I've got a guy opposite me. In that situation, I'm the alpha male. I'm in control of the conversation. I'm in control of what he gets asked. I'm in control of everything in this room. It's my office, my space. I'm the alpha male in that scenario. I'm the dominant one. On your podcast, you guys are the alphas. I'm the guy that sits back, more submissive to you guys, because it's not my space to take over. But men nowadays think that alpha male means they have to be... like, if I came in every here and tried to overpower you two, I'd be like, fuck this guy. I'm never having him on the podcast again. I don't want to know this guy, because he's just trying to...
It's just not conducive to a flow, is it?
Well, it's not conducive to any relationship in life.
No.
You know, you can't go into a relationship with a partner and be that person, because that somebody might be attracted to that you're quite dominant, you can make your own decisions and you've got a head on you and you know where you're going. But ultimately, if you just impose your will on a relationship, it'll go south pretty quick.
Dictatorship, isn't it?
Well, yeah,
but
exactly.
I mean, for example, right, you shake someone's hand, how do you do it? If you shake my hand, how do you do it? You shake hand, nice to meet you, mate, right? I've met guys who go like this.
Oh, like trying to crush your hand.
Go like this. They turn it that way, so you're underneath, so you look like a woman. And I'm like,
oh my God.
Are you serious? Like, did you just do that to me? And I'm like...
I don't know if I'd even be in tune to somebody doing that, you know, like...
But it instantly switches you off from them, because you're like, I don't like this guy, he's trying to...
Well, we're also as young boys, aren't we? You know, a firm handshake. And I tell my boys this, a firm handshake and look a man in the eye. You know, I tell them when we make a deal. So when we make a deal, I said to my boys, you know, £10, Dad, whatever it is, I said, we're shaking on this. I've done it this morning. I'm leaving you with Mum for a week. Mum's got the new puppy. She's going to be really busy. She's up at night, but she's going to be tired. You're the biggest boy, Sonny. I want you to make sure you and your brother and your sister just try and give Mum a chill time. We shook and look at me. I said, this is a deal, and you don't break this deal. And I think that's like that could be seen as fucking toxic masculinity on a hashtag page somewhere, right? I think I'm instilling in my trust, my belief, right, and then my love, and knowing that he's going to take care of his mum and help his brother and sister to sort of, Mum's under the cosh. We've got a little puppy. We all love him, and I think there's, you know. I don't know. It's a tricky one, because toxic masculinity, as it's thrown around now.
There's nothing toxic about masculinity.
It's removing men. We all want men to be men, don't we? Women especially.
Apparently not. They don't even know what that means. I mean, for example, like, it's one of those phrases that's been thrown out that no one knows what it means, right? So if I say to you, for example, the customer is always right, is one that's thrown around, right?
Yeah.
That's not the end of the phrase. Did you know that? The customer is always right in matters of taste.
Right.
So if they don't personally like something, they're right. They don't like the taste of it. It's
Because it's subjective.
Because it's subjective, exactly.
Of course, yeah.
The customer's always right in matters of taste. It's not the customer's always right regardless. But we've took that, you go into a shop, the customer's always right. If you learned the full phrase, dickhead, you'd know that you weren't right. But it's what gets thrown around. So toxic masculinity, we say, is anything inherently traditionally masculine, right? What is traditional masculinity? Well, it's like looking after your family.
Yeah.
It's being strong, being dependable,
Being available, yeah.
Yeah, it's all those things. It's
I've opened a door for a young lass in a gym just because I'm about to get there. She's coming the other way. Open the door, and I've had a huff and a puff and I know when I do it for an older lady, I've kind of, that's logged in my mind, like, oh, people are offended, and I'll do it and I'll say, oh, you know, just like the old days, and she's like, thank you very much, young man.
Yeah, I love it.
Young man.
Toxic femininity is also a thing, though, man. That's what you gotta look at.
Well, it's what they do, isn't it?
Toxic masculinity is those gym bros that are like so massive and so loud and dominating in every environment where they piss everyone off, not even by talking to them. That's toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity is not looking after your family and stuff.
No.
I've heard a lot of guys say, I'd love for my wife to not have to work. Well, what if she wants to work? Then she can work, but I'd love to be able to provide so that she didn't have to. She could go and do whatever she wanted. I'll take the burden of the hard work and look after the family and make sure they're provided for. Because men want to feel useful. If you take that away and say, like, you know, your wife should have a career and you should look after all the kids and stuff like that, like, that can work for some people. But for the majority of men, they want to feel useful. They want to be the breadwinner. That's just in us. You know, it's like if you tell a woman not to be emotional, it's like, well, that's just who we are. It's like, yeah, well, men want to feel useful, you know, that's who we are.
Yeah, this is something I think about quite a lot, right? Because it's built in us from, you want to go back to the caveman days.
Yeah.
Keep people warm, give them shelter, provide food. That's built in you, I think, in most men. It's built
just
in
in
me.
your
I feel
epigenetics.
like
It's in
when
your
I've
code.
done that, I've sort of done my job.
Yeah.
But nowadays, and this as being a modern man, and there being available for your family and being present and all this, I don't think there's been a period in history where it's more difficult to be a man.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, showing up, and because you're still doing all those things, but being emotionally available and whatnot, it's hard, man, nowadays. Like with everything we've just talked about, you know, all this digital era, and
there's a lot of fake things get put around as well. Like people don't. It's just whatever you see on social media seems to go. Like, I mean, for example, right? I believe, and you can look this up in any books, that beauty is not subjective; it's objective.
right.
Beauty is not subjective. There are objective terms. That's just why we find models more beautiful. That's why you
symmetry,
get higher. It's like, for example, right? If you go up to a girl and say, "Do you think Lizzo is attractive?" and she'll go, "Yeah, she's beautiful. She's going for it." And you go, "Well, you remind me of Lizzo." She's going to get offended. Right? And it's like the two dynamics. It doesn't make sense, right? So it's like, in order to like fully understand, I mean, there's a great study on this actually by Dr. David Buss. Do you know him?
Yeah, David Buss.
So he did a 37 different culture
Chris
study.
Williamson's working with him now, I think.
Sorry?
Are you aware of Chris Williamson, the Modern Wisdom podcast?
He interviewed him, didn't he?
I think he's doing a paper with him right now.
Yeah. Well, he did a study on 37 different cultures around the world. This is from everywhere who'd been touched by media, who'd not been touched by, like, just tribes and stuff, right? And he studied their mating choices, right? And he found it was universal. Women preferred a larger shoulder to waist ratio, like broader shoulders, more upper body muscle. Men preferred certain shoulder hip to waist ratio. You know, all these things were, you know, men were more bothered about accumulating resources. They didn't care about a woman that could accumulate resources. Women cared more about men who could. There was all these things, but universal. And we are trying to tell people that you're not wired a certain way, you're a blank slate. It's like, no, you're a meat robot. You have wiring. And if you keep denying it, this is why you're getting stressed.
You're on the edge of a conversation.
Yeah.
You've got all this going on. You've got all this wiring. It's like, why? It's like there's loads of random statistics and numbers that can show how weird we all are as people, but people don't want to hear it. Like, for example, like 70% of divorce rates are initiated by women. And it's like, oh, that's crazy. Does that mean women are bad? You could take it down that way. Does it mean men are failing? You could also take it that way. You know? And it's like, women, for example, I think loads of these stats, like women on average fall in love with their affair partner 80% of the time. Men only like 23 to 30% of the time. That is a mental statistic and paints some in a different light, but the statistics don't lie.
But you can again make a statistic objective, can't you, or subjective?
You can take from it what you will, but it's still there. So you can take from it what you will, but it's still there.
Just yeah,
which is scary.
it is.
Do you know what the problem is with this? We could sit and debate these things for hours, couldn't we?
Absolutely.
I think we'll have to get on number 2, number 3, number 4. We could probably have a full series
Mate,
together.
I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, we should.
I just want to touch on one thing, and I think you made a point to it earlier that you make content, you put things out, you like being in the limelight quite a bit, but there is a big part of you, no getting away from it, what you do, where you must have a really empathetic side, and you want to help people, whether that's the public speaking, whether that's the podcast, you're putting things out on a platform to try and help people, the gym, and you're working on yourself a lot. So where does that come from then, that empathetic nature? Is there one time in your life where you can pinpoint to go, well, you know what, I felt that certain way and I don't want people to feel that way? Or is there a statistic around mental health that drives you?
I mean, my mum was always the one that people went to. She was always like that typical mum who listened to everyone's problems, and I really liked that. And I think I also found use in, like I said, men want to be useful. That was my use growing up. I was very good at helping people. I always wanted to be that way. Maybe it's a genetic trait from my mum's side of the family. But I think I know how I felt. Like, I mean, I didn't touch on a lot of points. Like, there's been points where I've like not wanted to get out of bed or been really miserable. I've never had depression, but I've had periods of a depression. You know what I mean? There's a difference between the two.
You've experienced it,
yeah, and it's horrible. So you want to make sure people don't go through that. And I think anyone who does things like this has been through something and wants to make sure no one else ever goes through that again, or at least they can ease into it a little bit. And I just want people to do cool shit. That's what I want people to do. I want people to see that it's possible to do cool shit, whether it's just for the Instagram picture. Even if it's just, I know you hate Instagram, but if you
I don't hate Instagram.
You've got a core memory then, even if it's just for the camera or whatever. Like, I love documenting everything. I take pictures of everything. I don't always post it because people don't need to know the ins and outs of all your life. But do the cool shit that you want to do. It's possible. Whether it's a podcast who has 2 listens, those 2 listens is like this. It's you guys. You guys are great listeners. If I had 2 listeners on my podcast, I'd be like, great. There's 2 people who I'm helping every single time.
We're absolutely of that mind. Yeah, that's what we do. We actually buzz seeing some of the numbers that come past, and people. I'm like, oh my god, can you believe this? There's a few people listening, but it's what people are taking from it, isn't it? For me, if I had one person taking something from it and nobody else listening, job done, fantastic, And this is a question we ask everyone on the pod. It sort of ties into what we were just talking about. So, having grown up in Newcastle, you meet a lot of fantastic people from this region. I'm sure you're as passionate as we are about it and want to help. But one of the real reasons we set this up, and something we're seeing a lot of and having these conversations through the work we do, is this region, as fabulous as it is, and as fabulous as the people are, is struggling, man. We have some of the worst statistics around suicide and mental health, and under-resourced in a lot of areas. Why is it? Can you pinpoint anything you think that this region is particularly struggling with? A
few reasons. Maybe it's lad culture of drinking, too much alcohol, not enough movement, too many beer bellies, not enough like flat packs, too much of that culture going around, and also not many men give each other permission to speak. It's always like, if you got a problem, you come outside, you drink with the boys. No, you need to talk about it. Set up. I have a group of like 5 friends. Doesn't need to be many, but I've got a group chat on WhatsApp. Talk about problems, share things. If you are the guy that gives permission to someone else to talk, you open that barrier for you to talk as well. Of course. So if you can open that permission, you give people permission to talk, it's just going to open up. Yeah, exactly. That's what this podcast is for, man. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I think just maybe it's a little bit of laziness as well, like where we don't.
That's interesting, because it's a hard-working part of the country, isn't it? Traditionally, in terms of industry,
it's hard to manage a family, job, and then try and also look after yourself on top of it. But the alternative, like I said at the beginning, is you feel like shit. But
that's a global thing, isn't it? If you're in those situations or experiencing them things, that is difficult anywhere in the world. What do you think might make it more difficult for people in this region? Could it be the climate, or motivating yourself? Because let's be honest, it can get pretty. I don't like to say it's grim up north. It's not in terms of beautiful scenery and whatnot. Yeah. But the weather can be fucking grim.
The weather plays a part, and I think I'm in 2 minds about this thing, right? Because I'm always like, the weather shouldn't massively make a difference whether you do the thing or not. Like if I choose whether I'm going to the gym, whether it's sunny or not, that's just a little bit of a, not to use a horrible term, but a little bit of a bitch attitude. I'm like, you've still got to do, I mean, as soft as we can be about men's mental health, there has to be a level of step the fuck up, like not wake up, but step up. Like you've got things to do. There's always something to do as a man, whether you feel like it or not. That's just part of the job, you know. The stuff that, if we take the other side of it, that women do, that they have to do, that they don't particularly want to do, but they do it. It's the same for men. We just
women
have to do it.
Women are fucking hardcore, man. Like, tip me hat, any woman, they are fucking hardcore women. The stuff they've got to deal with in life that we don't have to experience.
Emotionally, they're just,
oh my god,
they're just wired to so much heavy emotion that they pay the price as well, though, don't they?
Yeah,
they pay the price.
Do you know what I also think as well, as a final point of this, and this is a controversial one, men often pick the wrong partner. They pick, like, they go for
aesthetic.
They burst through lust rather than taking an objective step back and going,
symmetry.
Would this woman be right for my life? Because I know a lot of dudes that get into relationships just because she looks good, but she's a fucking drama queen. She's always surrounded by drama.
Course. Well, because
this is going on.
Do you know what? No one's ever mentioned that point on here.
That's a really good point.
With relationships.
Because again, I can't help but bring everything back to more and more input of comparison, competition. If you are driven as a male or a female, but let's take females in this case, because it's men who are the vulnerable lads who are getting caught. I've been in this boat, right? So I'm talking about me. I'm not talking down my nose to anybody. I've been in 2 serious relationships in my life. The first one, I was drawn to the symmetry. The crazy girl, the loud girl, the head spinning girl, you know, the pretty girl that everybody was, wow, look at her, right? But she had her own story. I later found out, and I learned it at the time, but I didn't understand what I know now about the human condition and families and trauma and all those things. But those, if a girl, if her currency is her aesthetic, you know, if she was picked first for everything at school and everybody wanted to be in her group, and you know, not by her own fault, but her ego is inflated, and same for boys, but we're talking about girls in particular at the moment. Boys have been living in a marketing culture where sex is sold to you, everything. They sell you fucking milk cartons through sex. We have been designed now to aim at, and you just said to it there, even primarily, hip ratio, right? Shoulder ratio for men. Sex has been used as that thing to sell. So now we have been driven towards girls themselves to look a certain way. And obviously the porn and all of that now has just created a minefield. So we are now drawn to the superficial, because what it looks like on the surface is the superficial. And the girls are thinking this is the most important thing in the world, to look like Kim Kardashian or whoever the latest and greatest is. We are driven by our dicks, and we're like, she looks like a fucking, you know, we're primarily drawn to, but it's all superficial. We all lose. Because then they get together at 20, they have a kid, they split up at 22, the kid's fucking wheels are spinning like, what's going on? And that's a really deep one.
It's a horrible thing to say, but I think most guys pick the wrong partner, and I can only speak from a man's perspective. Yes, as a woman you can pick the wrong dude too, you can pick some douchebag bad boy, whatever, but I think...
For sure, absolutely.
Some people in life are just good for a quick pump and dump as a man or a woman, and then some are relationship material. That's just how it is throughout all of history.
That's grown-up consent. Everybody knows where they are. This is what we're doing.
There's people who aren't designed at that moment in time to be in a relationship because they're just nuts. And that's just how it is. It's harsh. And there's people listening who they might be sitting going, well, I'm always relationship material. And they're not. You know, you've got to do a lot of work on yourself to actually maintain a long-term relationship and not completely screw the other person's life over.
Well,
stop picking for lust.
I'll be honest, mate. Like, in previous relationships, I have worked on myself extensively for a long period of time, and in previous relationships I used to blame other people and whatnot, but the truth being was I had a lot of shit I need to work on, and then you look in the mirror and you're like, oh, I'm the problem, and then I had to do all that work, and then now that's allowed me to be in this relationship I'm in with my wife and show up, and I have difficult days, I am flawed, and she, bless her, loves me for who I am, and I'm not the finished article, but I've done a lot of work whereby I can now show up as a better person. But the problem was me a lot of the time, which is a hard thing to really...
Yeah, I concur, mate. And when I met my wife now, same thing. She's beautiful. I still was caught by the beauty, but I recognised her intentions were maternal. back to that primal thing. She was maternal carer, giver, and I'm blessed now that she's put up with me for this long, 13 years. I am blessed, yeah.
Just following on from, and it sort of ties everything up. And there might be one thing you can sort of call on, but the question we want to end on, and we do on every podcast, is if someone listening to this is struggling, is there one piece of advice you could give them from your experience that could maybe benefit them? What one piece of advice has helped you with your mental health? Move.
Just movement. If you can do it with a friend, even better. Friend that you trust.
Yeah.
Move. Just basics. Start walking. Then get a gym membership and just commit to going for a couple of days a week. Move it up. I mean, what guy doesn't want to have a bit of muscle mass? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's nothing makes you feel better than having big biceps, man.
And now we've got a name for the podcast.
Yeah. But it's just, jokes aside, right? You need to do something with a friend is always great, because a lot of dudes do it alone. You enjoy it more. You push each other. Healthy male competition is great. I train my brother in the gym now. I mean, he's still skinny. He's only been going for like 4 months or something. But like, I train harder when he's watching. He trains harder when I'm there. Yeah. It's a little sibling rivalry, but it's good. Yeah. Maybe you haven't got a brother. Maybe you can go train with your sister or your best friend. If you got a best friend and you can't, as I like to say, if you've got a best friend and you can't call out their mum on a daily basis, or go to the gym with them and have an open conversation, they're not your best friend. So
I like it.
It's simple and powerful, isn't it? Move. And if you can move with people and get into something
it sounds
you enjoy,
so simple. Like, people listen going, that's basic advice.
Use your body. Get into it.
The best piece of advice is that simple, isn't it?
Keep it. People are overcomplicating it.
And see the difference.
Move. Get your life together and cut out all the unnecessary noise of your life as well.
Put the fucking phone down, and get yourself out.
Do an audit on your life, right? Write down what's necessary. What can you delegate to somebody else, whether it be in the household or business, and then what can you just get rid of? So what do you need to do? What can you delegate someone else, or what can you get rid of? Just audit your life.
More power, Adam.
Well, I feel like we could sit here for hours, but I think we want to get out.
I will happily sit here all day, man.
Well, we're going to have a
we'll definitely have a part 2. We'll lock something in and get you back in, because
I'm building out my studio for another microphone set, so I'd love to have you both on that.
Absolutely, man. We'll return the favour 100%.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
And you can be the alpha.
I'll dominate the shit out of you, Jason Momoa.
Thank you very much, Adam.
Thanks. Really, really appreciated you coming on and having the chat, and hopefully you can get to experience some of the stuff that's happening today.
Man. I mean, if anyone wants to hear more from me, like you said,
where do they find you?
Yeah, you can search the Above Average Podcast. It's on YouTube, it's on Spotify, it's on Apple, it's on probably Google Podcasts, if that's still a thing. You can find me on Instagram at Adam James Proud as well, and
Adam
Facebook.
James Proud,
Instagram is probably the best place to find me.
Well, we put the links on when we put this out, but yeah, really appreciate you coming on and love what you're doing.
No, thanks, man. This is just an amazing event. I'm glad to be here.
More power. Take care.
Big love, man.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Peace.